So, um, as some of you know, we are planning uh, Sojin Roshi's funeral at last, and that will take place at Green Gulch uh, on June 19th, and invitations will go out widely in the next couple of weeks. Uh, it'll be both in person and on Zoom, and we'll probably do it outdoors at Green Gulch so that we can accommodate a lot of people. Um, so this is a complicated, actually, it's not that complicated a ceremony, but the choreography is very complicated. Uh, and so we have the opportunity to work with uh, our friends from Green Gulch and our friends from uh, Sotoshu, Akiba Roshi, and his staff, and the lead officiant. Um, so just to say structurally, uh, the disciples, and that's going to be kind of widely construed. But Sojin's disciples are mourners, and they're not the actual officiants. They don't lead the ritual aspects, and so the ritual aspects are led by people who are more in the extended family. So the chief officiant is going to be Tenshin Roshi, Reb, and Liz and I have had a couple of wonderful uh, conversations with him. And then I went out there to Green Gulch to meet with him to go further into details last week. Uh, and we had a very productive session. And then we were sitting in his home and talking about our respective families and what our children were doing, what our spouses were doing. And I mentioned that during the pandemic, uh, Alex Genpo had spent a year and a half or so uh, in Japan uh, training with Shoto Harada Roshi at Sogenji. Now, Harada Roshi, who I've talked about before, was also one of my teachers. He was a disciple of Yamada Mumon Roshi, who was one of the really pivotal figures in Rinzai Zen in the in the second half of in the 20th century, and he was also an important bridge figure between the East and West. He was very interested in what was happening in West, and he was also very interested in the proliferation of uh, the lay dimension of Zen uh, in Japan and here. Uh, and so he had made, I should have thought of this in advance. He made 2 trips to San Francisco uh, in the 70s, just one after Suzuki Roshi had died, and he went to Tassajara. And he gave talks there and spent a couple of days and met with the students. And I found in the photographs that Liz gave me from Sojin's many photo albums, I found a lovely photograph of uh, very young Sojin Roshi with Mumon Roshi. And Mumon Roshi was a very sprightly and, he was described by Victor Hori as, and he looked and acted like a tiny, wispy, immaterial Taoist hermit. He had a little beard. He kind of was very Yoda-esque. Uh, but Victor Hori says, but inside the Dokusan room, he turned into a lion. He was ferocious. Uh, so Reb and Sojin and all the Tassajara students had met Mumon Roshi and were very impressed with him. And in the 80s, Reb was traveling in Japan, and he went to visit Mumon Roshi at his temple. And at that point, Mumon Roshi was in his last years. He was frail, and I believe it was said that he didn't speak for the last 5 years of his life. And so when Reb went to visit, um, Mumon Roshi's attendants uh, sort of carried him out, and they had dressed him in his formal robes and put him in his seat. But there wasn't any real communication possible. And what Reb was telling me was he was sitting there seeing this person who had impressed him so deeply, and then seeing him in this state. And the question that came up to Reb was, what is a Zen master? So is the Zen master Mumon Roshi, the Zen master, is he still there? Is he still a Zen master? And of course, uh, Reb's frame of reference for Zen master is Suzuki Roshi, who was really pretty with it um, until the end. But what is a Zen master? This is a question I felt like Reb was asking this out loud, and he was offering that question to me. He didn't attempt to answer it. I didn't really pursue a discussion or a conversation with it, but it's really held on as a wonderful question in the last few weeks. And some of you know that I've been working on a book which is in its kind of last editing stages. And the book is called Turning Words, which is it's a book of very short encounters with Buddhist teachers. And uh, when I think about it, in each of these encounters, uh, the person that I was hearing or that I was engaged with or that I heard about was in that moment a Zen master for me or Buddha. And so I've been thinking about that. What is a Buddha? What is a Zen master? And I think what I've come to think about is that there are two requisites. The first one came to me, I hadn't really thought about it, but if you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. So in preparation for a practice period, uh, I've been reading in the Lotus Sutra reading stories, and also reading commentary. And there's a commentary by uh, Gene Reeves, who's one of the primary Lotus Sutra scholars. And uh, he sort of talks about the difference between God in the sort of Christian theological sense and the Buddha. Uh, and it's one way of looking at it. Uh, God is portrayed as complete and self-sufficient, uh, as an entity that is uh, all-encompassing, uh, but is proceeding from uh, this sense of fullness or completeness. And what Gene Reeves said is the Buddha, a Buddha, cannot do what he or she vows to do without the help of others. And so when you look at all of the classical sutras, the first thing they do is set the scene. They describe who's there, who's receiving these teachings. And Gene Reeves says, we might even say that the Buddha could not be the Buddha without the great assembly. The Buddha, after all, is primarily a teacher and a preacher. And a teacher is not really a teacher unless there is one learner. Even more important, in the Dharma Flower Sutra, it's another name for the Lotus Sutra, the Buddha needs others to carry on his teaching practice after he is no longer active in this world. So the Buddha is doubly dependent on the assembly. He needs others both to receive his teachings and to share them with others. So, as I was thinking about it, I think that's one of the characteristics, or one of the requisites for a Buddha, that there be someone to teach. And when you think about what is a Zen master or what is a Buddha, uh, what came to me is that their identity, that identity, if you will, is forged in relationship to us, to each of us. In a sense, this is what Dogen is talking about when he talks about a Buddha and a Buddha. That in order for there to be a Buddha, there has to be a meeting with another Buddha. And that Buddha is us, even though we may not realize it. Of course, the thrust of uh, the Lotus Sutra, and the thrust of the Mahayana teachings, and the thrust of uh, Sojin's and Suzuki Roshi teachings is you yourself are Buddha. Each of us is Buddha. But we're Buddha, that identity or that reality emerges in relationship to another Buddha. Our understanding emerges in the context of the relationship with a teacher or a Zen master. So that's, to me, that's one of the aspects, or one of the requisites. And perhaps we can talk about that more. But I think that's when I think about what Reb's experience might have been, uh, having experienced Mummon Roshi as a Zen master, and then experiencing him uh, in a diminished capacity, still the Zen master was evoked for him. And so for Reb, perhaps the Zen master that he had encountered was still alive. And we see that, sometimes we see that in people. Yesterday, actually, uh, I went to see an old friend uh, who I've known for close to 50 years. He's a wonderful musician. Uh, and I hadn't known until uh, some months ago that uh, he had a fairly early onset Alzheimer's, and uh, was really retreating from the world. And I went to visit him at really what seemed like an excellent place to me. Some of you may know of it, called the Elder Ashram uh, on Fruitvale. Uh, uh, they had a picture of Suzuki Roshi on the wall. Uh, and a lovely place. And they brought out, my friend came out, he was walking with a walker, and we had brought a guitar for him. And I opened the case and handed him his lovely guitar, really fine instrument. And he just took it naturally in his hands, and he started finding the notes. He started playing this. He started playing the sketch of a blues in E, the key of E, and his face relaxed. And so I felt, oh, he's still there. There's suffering, there's loss, but the essential kind person that I knew for all those years, and gifted person, uh, giving freely of his music and going deeply with it, that person was still there. What is a Zen master? So the other aspect or other dimension of a Zen master, a Buddha, a person of practice is uh, what Dogen calls practicing Buddha. There's a lovely fascicle. It's number 23 in the Shobogenzo. It's called Gyobutsu Yuiji, Gyobutsu Yuiji, which translates roughly as practicing Buddha. And he writes at the start of it, all Buddhas, without exception, make full use of their everyday behavior for their practice. So this is their comportment, their activity. They make full use of their everyday behavior for their practice. This is what is meant by a Buddha doing his practice. A Buddha doing his practice does not refer to a Buddha realizing enlightenment or to a Buddha's transforming himself, nor does it refer to a Buddha as the embodiment of the Dharma or to a Buddha as others see him embodied. It is beyond the state of a Buddha and his initial realization, or even his fundamental realization. And it is beyond the state of a Buddha in his inherent enlightenment. A Buddha who is equivalent to any of these can never stand shoulder to shoulder with a Buddha who's doing his practice. Keep in mind that Buddhas, being within the Buddha's way, do not go looking for realization. This is a conundrum for us because we often have in the back of our minds some yearning for realization, but it's not something that we can accomplish according to Dogen and according to uh, many of our teachers. Uh, again, I know I've been referencing this in several talks, and I'm going to get around to it uh, in more depth, perhaps later in the year, but I've been reading in Shin Buddhism. And there, the realization they're very insistent. This is not something you can accomplish. It's what is given. It's what's given by the Buddhists. And one receives it. And then one has somebody asked me, actually, well, having received it, you have a responsibility to enact it. And that is the Buddha's practice. So keep in mind that Buddhas, being within the Buddha's way, do not go looking for realization. Being proficient in one's daily conduct whilst on the path towards Buddhahood is what is meant by a Buddha just doing her practice. It's not something that is even dreamed of by those who are, say, Buddhas as embodiments of the Dharma. So in other words, the second requisite is basically Buddha activity, Zen master activity, that there's the necessary component. So you have those two components. You have the necessity of an assembly, someone to work with, or perhaps something to work with. And then you have the work itself. Those are the dimensions of our Dharma activity or Dharma life. And so we have the Sangha as a field. We have the Mahasangha as a field. We have everything and everyone that we encounter as a field. And perhaps that can be summed up as the activity of respect. And we know, as an idea, that makes complete sense. And then we catch ourselves again and again being irritated, being hurt. We catch ourselves with the feelings of non-respect. And right there is an opportunity to turn. So I thought, I haven't done this in a while. I thought I would sing you a song, if that's okay. I've sung this before, but I don't think I've sung it for quite a while. Many of you know it. It's a song from the Lotus Sutra, chapter 20, called Our Hero, by our friend Greg Fain and Ben Gustin. And it talks about the bodhisattva never disparaging, the bodhisattva who practice practices of respect. And so I'll try it today. This funny little message just popped up in my Zoom. Playing music? Set up professional audio section settings. I'm going to leave it. There's a book called the Lotus Sutra that you really ought to know about. A holy book that has the power to remove all fear and doubt. And this book tells the story of a man who means the world to me. He could just as well have been a woman, except for male hegemony. So they call him the Bodhisattva, never disparage, the Bodhisattva, never despise. And I'm making it my life's ambition to see the world through his pure eyes. Because he says, I would never disparage you or keep you at arm's length, where you only see your weaknesses, I only see your strength. I would never despise you or put you down in any way, because it's clear to me, I can plainly see, you'll be a Buddha someday. I love you. So that last part was a chorus which you can sing. It comes around a few more times. Now the Bodhisattva, never disparaging, lived countless kalpas in the past. In the time of the counterfeit Dharma, and he was something of an outcast, because the monks and nuns of his time, they were noted for their arrogance and vanity. And these are the folks who exercised great power and authority. But my boy, he never concerned himself if they treated him like a freak. He just bowed to everybody equally, and these are the words he'd speak. I would never disparage you or keep you at arm's length, where you only see your weaknesses, I only see your strength. I would never despise you or put you down in any way, because it's clear to me, I can plainly see, you'll be a Buddha someday. I love you. He never read or recited the scriptures much. He only liked to practice respect. But the monks and nuns of his time, they didn't mean it like you might expect. Instead, they cursed him, and they reviled him, and they wished that he would go, because they all had self-esteem issues, like everybody else I know. So they beat him and pelted him with clubs and stones. They tried to drive him away, but he just run off to a safe distance, and he'd turn around and say, I would never disparage you or keep you at arm's length, where you only see your weaknesses, I only see your strength. I would never despise you or put you down in any way, because it's clear to me, I can plainly see, you'll be a Buddha someday. I love you. And so it went on for years and years. He was the target of scorn and abuse. Still our hero, he shed no tears, or did he ever wonder what's the use? He came to the end of his natural lifespan. He lay down, fixing to die. and he heard the Holy Lotus Sutra being preached up in the sky, and his life was extended for millions of years. He's living to this day. And in the pages of the Lotus Sutra, you still can hear him say, I would never disparage you or keep you at arm's length, where you only see your weaknesses. I only see your strength. I would never despise you or put you down in any way, because it's clear to me, I can plainly see you'll be a Buddha someday. Yes, it's clear to me, I can plainly see you'll be a Buddha someday. I love you. I love you. The song is a really good song, and it really encapsulates that whole chapter. Um, he only liked to practice respect, uh, but the monks and nuns of his time, they didn't always meet it like you might expect. Um, and so one of the things, and I've talked about this before, is a important line. So they insulted him, they beat him, and they pelted him with clubs and stones, and they wanted him to disappear. Um, he'd run off to a safe distance, and he'd turn around and say, sometimes the Zen master has to do that. Sometimes the teacher has to have a safe distance, but the thing is, he'd turn around and say, I would never despise you. Uh, the the thing that, you know, I feel, uh, I just feel that it really is something that communicates through all the teachings of Suzuki Roshi. And I certainly experienced it with Sojin, was this great ability to accept each person, accept us in our with our flaws, sometimes commenting on them or helping us encounter our shortcomings, encounter the places that we have to, uh, we should be working, to be able to see that and to be able to point us in that direction, which is what a teacher does, which is what all of the Dharma does. Uh, and at the same time, to communicate this very deep acceptance. So that's where those two aspects of what is a Zen master, what is a Buddha, uh, coincide, uh, coincides in uh, having an assembly, having a student, and accepting that student or that assembly from right where they are. And it's very clear to me uh, from reading and listening to Suzuki Roshi and from observing uh, his students that he had this he had developed this remarkable ability to see everyone in such a way that they felt seen. Now, I don't want to idealize this too much. Because one of the things that I was thinking as I was uh, preparing this talk is that maybe a Buddha isn't a Buddha for everyone. Maybe a Zen master isn't a Zen master for everyone. And uh, with all respect, I know that there are people who didn't feel fully seen by Sojin. There are people who probably don't feel fully seen by me. Um, and I I understand that, uh, and sort of like don't fight against it. But I think that, just so you know, that my vow and my practice uh, is really expressed in this song. This is what I'm trying to do. At the same time as I have flaws and shortcomings, and all of our teachers are human. Some of these Zen masters had tempers, and some of them were not able to see everybody. But in a broad sense, that was their vow. That's what they tried to do. And I, honor them. And this is what, if you read the sutras, if you read the Lotus Sutra, I think early in the Lotus Sutra, you know, uh, the Buddha uh, talks about the 3 or 4 vehicles. He talks about the Shravaka, the hearer vehicle, the Pratyeka Buddha, the self-enlightened vehicle, the Bodhisattva vehicle, and the one vehicle. And when he says he's going to teach the one vehicle, uh, a large part of the assembly gets up and walks out. So at that moment, he was not a Buddha for them. But he wasn't rejecting them. If we walk away from the master, if we walk away from a Buddha, uh, it's important to consider uh, whether we are walking away from something that is valuable, some place where we might learn. And this is one of the experiences, I will say, it's a really important experience for me with Sojin. Um, because he could be very critical of me, uh, with good reason, often. But sometimes I didn't think so. You know, sometimes I uh, sometimes I was hurt, and sometimes the Zen master will hurt your feelings. But what I learned as practice was try not to. Um, I would try not to be reactive. I'd step back. I'd run off to a safe distance myself, uh, and I would think, there's something true here. There's something useful that is being communicated, and um, I'm going to reflect on that. I'm going to think on that, because this is a person whom I respect, who has wisdom, and who I feel uh, there's a bond of trust and love between us. So where's the truth there? And really, this is not something that somehow was special between me and Soja. once you undertake that as a kind of practice, then you apply that in every relationship and interaction. There may be wailing and gnashing of teeth, but there still can be the very deep self-inquiry of what's the truth here? Is there something I can learn that is going to help me you to the line of Dharma? And I think, in a sense, that was, at least in my interpretation of what Reb was saying, that was an element there. All of a sudden, he was confronted by this person that he had great respect and appreciation for, and it didn't appear to be the same person. And so he got to this question: what is a Zen master? So what am I experiencing in this situation that points me back to the Dharma? And our whole everyday experience. This is why I love this passage from Gyobutsu Yuiji. All Buddhas, without exception, make full use of their everyday behavior for their practice. That includes our everyday thoughts, our everyday doubts, our everyday sitting down cross-legged, as we're doing today during sesshin. And so each of us has the opportunity to manifest ourselves as Buddha. Each of us has the opportunity to manifest ourselves as the Zen master. And, I'm not saying that kind of facilely. I'm saying that this is our responsibility from the moment we have the first sense of way-seeking mind. With that arises our responsibility to ourselves and our responsibility to all that we come into contact with. So to never disparage, never despise, because it should be clear to all of us that each of us is going to be a Buddha someday. So I'm going to stop there and leave time for questions, answers, comments. Happy to encourage people who perhaps don't speak so frequently, but also I don't want to discourage people who have real questions or comments, and also just be lean in your expression, if you will. So, thank you. I'll turn it back to Blake. Is that right?
Good morning. Feel free to raise your digital hand, and I'll call on you. Ross Blum.
Thank you. Thank you, Hozan. I'm really happy that you had that experience with your friend with dementia, that you gave him a guitar and you saw him come alive, so to speak.
Thanks. Let me just say, I was anxious going there. I was just sort of preparing myself for something that was going to be
Yeah.
very painful, and
Mm.
I was it was it was sweet. It was
Yeah.
really a blessing.
I'm really happy that you had that experience. And the story with Reb and Yamada Muman reminded me of the koan Sun-Faced Buddha, Moon-Faced Buddha. And I don't know what was going on with Reb, but for me, when I've been around someone who is so-called diminished, the last days of Sojin Roshi, he was still a teacher for me in that he was a mirror, and I got to see my sadness and my feeling of loss and grief come alive, that he couldn't say, Ross, you should be feeling this way. It was up to me to kind of realize in myself what was being reflected, and he was just there. And it really brought that koan alive, Sun-Faced, Moon-Faced, for me. So again, thank you for your talk today.
Thank you.
And, yes.
That's the thing, that when we have a teacher, when we see someone as a teacher, it's like we're allowing them to be that mirror.
Precisely. Yep.
That's what I felt was the gist of what Reb's experience was. And so the difficulty of seeing someone that you care about diminished still, it throws us back in our own practice in a very deep, instructive way.
Indeed, it does. Thank you.
Sue Moon.
Hi. Thank you very much, Hozan. Well, first, I just want to say it's also the case that everybody keeps getting diminished. We're all impermanent, and that there's not a sort of borderline where you're fine, and then all of a sudden you're in this other state of being diminished. It's a continuum, so we have to watch out about we have to continually be exercising and remembering, well, it's still the same person. They're just different in many ways. But I just wanted to ask quickly, that wonderful fascicle, which one is that again? Yobutsu Yuiji?
Gyobutsu, Gyobutsu.
Oh, Gyobutsu, yeah.
Yuiji, Yuiji.
And is that in the double volume of Shobogenzo? Which number is that?
Well, I don't know. Number.
Or what is it in English?
In Nishijima, it's number 23.
Oh, okay, great. Thanks. Very nice. Thanks so much for this talk.
They're using different core texts.
Yeah.
Often a little different.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
Eleanor Preston.
Good morning.
Morning. Welcome back.
Thanks. So I'm thinking about the part where you say he runs into the hills to be at a safe distance.
Well, he didn't say run into the hills. He just runs off to a safe distance.
Runs off to a safe distance. And then there's the other part about I won't keep you at arm's length.
Let me just...
Or I will never disparage you or keep you at arm's length.
Right, yeah, okay.
And I'm thinking about that tension. And I think my question is, how do we know how far to run away? Or I forget it, but I think I run too far into the hills. And is the love felt from that far away is kind of my question. And how do we not have to run so far or something like that?
And I think it's, this is, of course, very subjective. And this is the message of that chapter, and you can go and read that chapter 20 of the Lotus Sutra, is to find out what that safe distance is for yourself. So, in other words, have a distance of safety while being in relationship at the same time.
Mm.
And, as I think we've talked about this, there have been people in my life, not here, actually, I'm happy to say, where the relationships have become difficult or strained. And so my practice has been just never to sever that relationship. But the safe distance was to offer a respectful friendliness, a practice of friendliness where honestly I might not feel all that friendly, but to practice respectfulness and to inquire how that person is when we meet, and just not to ignore that person when there might be an encounter. And I take the really long view,
Mm-hmm.
and in some cases it's taken 5 or 10 years of that. And then what I found, and this has been an experience that's happened several times in my life, by pursuing that practice, after a time, sometimes that person asks me for a favor, or they ask me to help with something.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh, there's a bid for relationship that I must take up. And that doesn't mean I'm not careful. It doesn't mean that it's as if nothing has transpired between us, but it means an opportunity to do something deeply creative in our relationship, in deeply creative in oneself, actually. And that's what I think. This song is about. So
Thank you.
use that as best you can.
Thanks.
Katie G.
Hello, Hozan. Thanks for your talk.
It's very nice.
Yeah, it is nice. It's a beautiful day. Ross's comment reminded me of something that someone told me when I was feeling a lot of loss as my father declined, which was a long decline with a lot of losses along the way.
I think some of us remember that very well.
Yeah. And someone said to me, perhaps it was you, I don't remember who it was, that when I was struggling with feeling like the parent-child relationship had flipped in certain ways, certainly in terms of the amount of caregiving going one way or the other. And they said, he's still parenting you in the sense that he's going before and showing me what it is to be a person at that stage of life. And I found that really helpful to recognize that there was not only loss, there was also continuity, and that it helped me understand parenting and our relationship as parent and child in a broader, deeper way. And I guess I was just wondering if you feel that holds to this teacher-student relationship that you were talking about, like where is or who is the Zen master.
I think so. That's really, it's really helpful. I mean, I think that parents, children, as an archetype, um, inevitably is a constant process of uh, leading and letting go, uh, and they don't; those things don't come up. They may come up together, or they may, one aspect may be predominant at any point in time. But I think that goes with that question that I was asking. I really learned this. It crystallized for me in my relationship with Sojin, which was not always easy. It is, just like what is the teaching here? So, like with your father, what is the teaching that that he was giving you by just being himself, not necessarily through any intention or any, any direction, but just by being himself? What is the teaching here? And those teachings are so rich. That's really that's how we learn how to live, and that's how we learn how to die.
And I think there was that capacity in that relationship I had with my father. Like I could be there for it because he did try to continue to take care of me as much as he could. To say,
that's really fortunate.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a great opportunity that you had, and I did not have this opportunity with. Well, actually, I had it with Sojin, but I did not have it with my parents. But those of you who are who have the opportunity to be on that journey with your parents, that's incredibly fortunate. I just am so happy for you to have that opportunity. And just remember, our turn is coming, or our turn has arrived for some, so all that we learn can be applied to who we are and where we go and how we are with our friends and family. To be a Buddha for them, to be a Zen master for them. So thank you. I think this is, if there's nothing else, I think this is a good place to end. What do you think, Blake?
I think that it is a great time to end.